Hey, deserving listeners, Vanderpump Rules. It sounded odd when I said that. Let's watch.
Of deceit. And did Schwartz know?
I don't know. Took him until this morning to even reach out to me.
Trying to justify.
Nothing worth anything.
Okay, so we're reading, I think, a text from Schwartz that he's admitting to Ariana that Tom confided in him and told him, he confided in me and I told him what he needed to do, which was to sit down and tell you everything out of respect for everything you guys have built together. I guess he was about to tell you, and this all blew up, and you got humiliated in the worst possible way. So blew up meaning came out online. I'm not gonna try to tell his story. You should jet set somewhere fabulous and just absolutely spoil yourself. Sheer decadence. Turn your phone off. Let's see.
Took him until this morning to even reach out to me.
So she's saying it took him until this morning to even reach out. See, I hope you don't have to do much. I hope you don't have too much ill will towards me. This whole situation is just effed. I don't want to kick my guy while he's down, but my God, the amount of anxiety and backlash I'm getting because of his actions are insane. Anyways, just know I care about you and I know you are going to be just fine. Yeah, I don't know the situation with Schwartz, but it puts people in a really tough situation. And if it is true that pretty soon after he found out about the infidelity, he told Tom, like, you have to tell Ariana, then it's just an impossible situation if you're a friend in a situation like that. Now, I guess a lot hinges on how long Schwartz knew about it and also how long it took Schwartz to reach out to Ariana afterwards. You know, we sometimes have this compulsion to blame people like Schwartz, but really it's Tom's fault. It's Tom's fault that he put everyone in that situation. You could absolutely imagine, and maybe you've even been there. And again, I don't know the details, and maybe y'all do, so I don't want to make excuses for someone, in a unwise manner. But I can say that based on the details I'm hearing thus far, it's possible that Schwartz just found out and go, you have to tell Ariana about this. Like you can't sweep it under the rug. And if so, then in my book anyway, and everyone's going to have their own idea about this, then he did the right thing and he shouldn't necessarily be attacked. If you've ever been in a situation like that, you want to be there for your friend, but you're also thinking, but you're cheating on someone else. That's wrong. Even if you don't know the person that they're cheating on, if you're just thinking, I don't know who you're cheating on, I don't know your partner, but I know you're doing something wrong to someone. As an example of this, I've been in this situation personally, but also professionally, which I can speak to. And by the way, whenever I talk about clients, I either have their permission to share the story while hiding the details of their identity, or I will jumble things up such that even the person that went through it wouldn't be able to know that I was even talking about them. I'll jumble up details here and there, but the gist of it will be the same. So that's the ethical practice. That's a standard of practice in my field for educators when they're talking about their own cases. Some people will say, he's talking about one of his clients. That's unethical. It's like, no. So I had a client where it was a couple that was coming to me, and one of the individuals told me that they were cheating on their partner. And they told me in an individual meeting. And as a side note, another thing that I will hear people say online is that it's unethical for a couple therapist to see the couple individually. And that's not the case. There's no ethical code. There's no research. There's no literature that even suggests that. There are considerations around that, and there are pitfalls to having the mode of therapy switch like that. But it's more complicated than that. It's case-by-case basis, and it depends on competency and informed consent to the client. Anyway, I won't bore you with the details. But anyway, so I was treating a couple, and I found out about infidelity from one of the members of the couple, and they told me they didn't want me to tell the other person. Now, I could technically tell the other person because confidentiality is such that they aren't protected in that way. It isn't that sort of relationship. I can't tell people outside of the couple certain things, right? But within the couple, in my disclosure statement, informed consent. Anyway, I won't bore you with details. Anyway, so they tell me about the affair, and I had this, I was in a very tight situation. So on one hand, I was glad I knew about it, because if I wasn't told about it, I wouldn't be able to work on it. And I'd be constantly revolving around this problem that I didn't know existed, right? So it gave me the opportunity to actually address it with the individual. and with the couple. But I had to lie by omission to the other partner when we would meet as a couple again. And that went on for a long time. I won't tell you how long, but very long. And but all along the way, I was telling the cheating partner, you have to tell your partner. Now, some people in my position would say, I can't work with you until so, figure it out and tell your partner. I didn't make that choice at the time because I worried they wouldn't actually engage in any therapy beyond that point. And then no one would be there to tell the cheating partner to tell the other partner, to tell the cheated on partner. So I did what I could. And it's also clear in my disclosure statement, because I had already talked about it and contemplated my policy. Some people have a no secret policy. I actually allow for secrets because if I have a no secret policy, from my experience, people won't tell me the secrets, and then I have no way of knowing what's going on with people. So if I at least am told a secret. Now, in my disclosure statement and informed consent, I tell my clients, look, there's a chance that this could happen, so just so you know, Anyway, eventually it comes out. The client turns to me after realizing about the infidelity, is very upset, Eventually, after they're upset at the cheating partner, they eventually turn to me and are like, did you know about this? And then I told the truth. I said, I have known, I've known for a long time, and I'm terribly sorry. I lied by omission to you, my client. And here's my thinking process. And remember, I went over this in the first session. It's in my disclosure statement. And I'm sorry. And my client was very angry at me, which is totally natural and normal. And I took it. And I didn't make excuses. I didn't defend myself. I took it because it was a massive transgression. It was a massive betrayal. But we recovered because I apologized and I understood and we saw ourselves through it. And I continued to work with the couple as they recovered from the infidelity beyond that. So it's not the fault of the person. Now, there are things you can do when you're told about the infidelity from a friend, if you're Schwartz, that will be a transgression and will be immoral and will be wrong in society's eyes and maybe some universal society's eyes. But there's no way out of it without creating more problems. If you're Schwartz, the most moral answer would be you would immediately go to Ariana and say, by the way, he's cheating on you, right? But most people aren't going to do that. And if you still care and love your friend Tom, then you don't want that to happen, right? So you're stuck having to lie by omission by default, right? And it's the fault of the cheater. So now, I don't know about what is going on with Schwartz here, but maybe we'll get some more details. But I will say that this phrase that they're highlighting, I don't want to kick my guy when he's down, is probably not the thing to text to Ariana at that point, right? Because to say, I feel bad for Tom, I don't know if that's going to go over very well.
To Rachel, or come up with some other name that she can fake, because she will not be welcome in this town.
Yeah. From what I knew of Raquel, I didn't think she was capable of being that secretive, that sneaky.
Literally, this girl has been ingratiating herself into my life and being my friend.
I do believe.
Yeah, one of the myths about cheating and cheaters is that they present as cheaters, that you can tell. Now, certainly some people do present in shady ways that you would suspect would be cheaters, but the average cheater doesn't act like a cheater, doesn't act like a stereotypical cheater. And the other side of this is that morally good people will cheat sometimes. So it's not this dichotomy that cheaters are evil and non-cheaters are not evil. A lot of very good, upstanding, moral, wonderful people will cheat sometimes. And there's a lot of factors, and it's obviously not okay because it's voluntarily making choices to harm or risk harm to another person. And we haven't even talked about like STIs and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so it's wrong, but it happens. It's common enough. And when I was younger, I used to, or at least I absorbed the societal view that all cheaters are evil. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And then the older you get, and particularly as a clinician, and actually treat people who have been cheating or are cheating, and I learned that it's complicated. It's not okay, but it's complicated, and a lot of people end up in that situation. Again, it's not okay, and there's a lot of things people could do. The other thing I'll say is that in all the people that I've worked with and in my personal life who have committed infidelity, particularly significant infidelity, they were not doing well mentally and emotionally. we have a notion that, Tom wants his cake and he eat it too. And certainly you can frame it that way, but typically cheating emerges out of great suffering. It doesn't justify it, but in my experience, when I am ground zero with people and I actually hear what led up to the infidelity or what's leading, because sometimes people come to me because they're thinking about cheating. And universally, when we address the suffering, the urge to cheat goes down.
The physical connection wasn't what it should have been. And then along comes this beauty queen that's clearly up for it. It was too much to resist.
I just hate him so much.
I know you do. That's normal. That's normal. I know.
So I see a lot of health in the way Ariana is processing it. She's talking about it. People are supporting her. She's emoting. She is being spontaneous, seemingly. I'm sure a lot of other things are happening off camera, but the things we're seeing on camera are all real healthy. Now, I don't know. Maybe y'all hate her and she's done a lot of really deplorable things, and Tom has been a saint up until now. So I can only comment on what I'm seeing so far.
I know. You're going to get through this. It's going to be really difficult, and it's going to take a long time. But you will get through it. You trust me with that.
Yeah.
On the other side, there's going to be something beautiful for you. You know that.
Yeah.
So a little tip is to avoid saying things like that when someone is in the depths of their despair. It's a compulsion that almost everyone has of like, everything will be okay, is essentially what she was saying. And it's dismissive. Now, I think for Ariana, she seemed to appreciate that. If it lands, then it actually can help. But you can't know if it's going to land with someone, because it could land with them as dismissive. Like, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. When they don't feel like everything's going to be fine. And two, it conveys this notion to the griever that you don't want them to be upset, that their emotionality, their sadness and their tears are inconvenient to you or bothersome to you. You want it to be over. It's like you're on a scary ride and you want it to be over as fast as possible. And you're like, everything's going to be fine, everything. So I wouldn't recommend saying that. It sounded like Ariana took it as it was intended, as to be reassuring. But yeah, you want to avoid saying that. The best thing you can do when someone's going through something like that is to listen, to nod your head, to hold their hand, ask questions maybe, but mainly you're there for them, you're hearing them, you're understanding them. Even if you can't relate, you might even be like, I don't know. Now, of course, it'd be hard not to be able to relate to Ariana, but if you have a friend that's going through something, you're just like, I don't really understand what they're freaking out about. But that's not the point. You don't need to understand. If you're a good friend, you'll be there with them.
How's Ariana doing? I mean, relatively speaking.
Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with drinking alcohol, particularly light beer, I suppose. But I will say that there's a fair amount of alcohol drinking on the show. I don't know if that's a concern for the viewers or for themselves or something. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as it's not creating problems, significant problems, then usually it's not something to comment on, like drinking coffee or smoking cigarettes or smoking weed every now and then. So there's that. But I don't know. I just thought I'd comment on that because they're bartenders, right? And from my understanding, statistically, and at least anecdotally for myself, there's a lot of addiction and people who suffer from addiction working in the restaurant industry. I think it's, if I was just to speculate, I think there are a couple factors. One is that if you have issues with substances, you might be attracted to restaurant work because it enables that kind of lifestyle where you work intensely for a short amount of time and you get paid a lot if you work really hard and really well. And then you get this big chunk of money and you have a lot of free time where you can use. And if you're in a restaurant, often you're around a lot of alcohol. It's just right there. And there's a culture of alcohol. And so it will promote a culture and a justification that, it's just a drink after work. Or it's just a little cocaine after work or something like that. It's just a pick-me-up before work. It's just a little bit of an upper before work so that I can compete within the restaurant industry. I had a friend who worked in the high-end restaurant industry in Seattle, and I learned through her just how intense the culture is and how much sacrifice these kitchen folks and these restaurant folks will engage in to keep the team going. You know, that you have to work together, and it's intensely difficult to pull everything off, and you're harming your body and your mind. And when you do that to you, and also when you suffer from addiction, often you were abused growing up. And another part of the restaurant industry is there can be a lot of self-flagellation, self-abuse, essentially, as you're subjecting yourself to how difficult. Now, I'm not, of course, there's a lot of restaurant jobs that don't involve this, but the competitive restaurant market can often be like this. And there's also a culture within the restaurant industry of self-sacrifice. You know, people will say, look, if you want to make it in the high-end restaurant, tavern, or bar industry, you have to accept that you're not going to get good sleep, that your relationships are going to suffer, you can't have kids, you know, all these kinds of things. Someone, T Sky on YouTube, sent me a summary of of the show. So looking here, I'm sure this will help everyone feel less frustrated with my lack of knowledge. So I'm looking at Raquel. She's a former pageant girl, a fan of the show. Raquel went to one of James Kennedy's DJ gigs. They then started dating, which is how she got onto the show. Raquel and James got engaged on the show after dating for 4 to 5 years. Wow. So James Kennedy was the fella who called her on speakerphone, right? So I guess that would potentially explain why he was being vindictive to her. Yeah, some residual hurt that he's going through. Doesn't justify it, but it does provide a factor. James struggled with alcohol abuse during the relationship, but Raquel forced James to get sober. Okay, so that answers the question about whether there's been addiction or signs of it on the show. She called off the engagement in December of 2021. Oh, so kind of recently. Since then, Raquel has struggled with her place on the show, but bonded with Ariana and Tom. Okay, so if that's true, then that would lead to speculation that she just weaseled her way into Tom's life because she wanted to be on the show, she wanted to continue, or she was jealous of Ariana's life and wanted to recreate it like that movie, Single White Female, was it? She has felt bullied by Layla and Katie. Layla has questioned her intelligence, for example. Okay, sounded like, didn't Kennedy do that as well? In 2023, it was discovered that she had a lengthy affair with Tom Sandoval, betraying Ariana. Her representatives have said she is currently in a mental health facility. Some speculate this was a PR move. Oh, so maybe that's where she is, in a mental health facility. Yeah, so one, it's kind of weird. I think it's kind of this LA thing. Are they in LA? Where are they? They kind of look like at least Southwest United States, Vegas, San Diego or something. Probably LA, right? It's always LA. LA's beautiful. LA's great. People in Seattle traditionally will trash on Los Angeles, but I love it there, and people are nice. I find Los Angelinos to be wonderful people. You know, not any wonderful than anyone else, but certainly not any worse than anyone else. Anyway, so of course we all know that this is a thing that's been going on for decades, where people in Los Angeles will go to inpatient treatment, whether it's for addiction or for something else. And certainly, as a mental health professional myself, I support people's efforts on, and sometimes it can be really helpful to have, you know, because in traditional outpatient treatment, you see a therapist for 1 hour a week, and it doesn't lend itself to a very concentrated, accelerated therapy process, right? Whereas if you go to inpatient or day treatment meaning maybe Monday through Friday for 6 to 8 hours. Eating disorder treatment can often look like this, because with eating disorder treatment, you often need to be with others that will support your efforts to refrain from behaviors that are self-destructive. Anyway, so that can absolutely be recommended. I've recommended it to clients. I've recommended it to clients recently. So for Raquel, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is this tendency for famous people to do this, I think, out of an effort to get away, which is fine. Also as a PR move, right? It's almost like it's the new version of going to jail. Like, look, I went to a mental health facility. I paid my price to society. That it has that kind of feel to it. Or it's an easy way to admit that you have problems that led to the bad behavior. It's like when you're caught cheating, people will say, "Oh, I'm a sex addict, so I'm going to get treatment to be a sex addict." And sex addiction is a thing. Compulsive sexual activity is a thing. I've treated people with it before. It's really debilitating. But most people who cheat are not compulsive around sex. They're not addicted behaviorally to sex. They just made choices that led to them cheating, right? They might have a lot of drive to cheat, but that doesn't constitute an addiction of sorts, So to distance oneself from the behavior, say, it's not my choice, it was an addiction, I suffer from a disease, is obviously a PR move, right? Or a way of trying to get your partner to love you again and to forgive you, which isn't advised. There are ways to recover from infidelity that don't involve deceiving yourself and others. Anyway, so we're hearing that she did that. James Kennedy and Ali. James is British and a DJ. He previously engaged to Raquel, Tom and Ariana. So both bartended for Lisa Vanderpump. I believe we actually saw Lisa Vanderpump earlier. So it is true that they're bartenders. The show certainly, the only bartending I've seen is making their own drinks. I'm guessing other episodes involve them actually at the bar. I don't know. And in 2013, Ariana was mourning the sudden death of her father. Okay, so I don't think she identified who she had lost. Tom, who was a friend, was a great comfort to her. They ended up kissing while Tom was still in a tumultuous and toxic relationship with Kristen Doute. Wait, no. So it sounds like Tom was with Kristen, and when Ariana was mourning the sudden death of her father, Tom, who was a friend, they ended up kissing. And so Tom cheated on Kristen with Ariana after Ariana lost her father, and then later on lost someone else. And Tom then cheated on Ariana with Raquel. Wow. I don't know if any of you are Star Wars fans, but, George Lucas loves to have rhymes within his storyline, right? If you're familiar with the trilogies. Anyway, I don't know why it reminds me of that. I frame everything through Star Wars. I'm old. That's how I do things. In 2013, after breaking up with Kristen, Tom began formally dating Ariana and quickly professed his love for her. Ariana has been open about her mental health struggles. Okay. She previously dated a man who criticized her body so much that she suffered an eating disorder and low self-esteem. She is still affecting her confidence with sexual intimacy. She also suffers from anxiety and depression. Okay, well, that adds context. So if that is all true, and if I might imagine how that might look without help for her and their relationship, depression, anxiety, eating disorder, self-esteem, sexual trauma, which you could call it that, being criticized for her body, that absolutely can throw a wrench into the gears of sexuality between a couple, right? And they didn't get help around that. For him, that might have been confusing. He could feel rejected, or at the very least, they're not able to bond in that way, and that could have led to the beginning of the end. It doesn't justify him breaking up with her or even cheating on her, right? So there's that. In 2019, they bought a house together. Tom always wanted marriage and kids with Ariana. I wonder if Ariana, because she seems pretty healthy at this point. I don't know, but she seems. So I wonder if she did go through a lot of treatment and thus has a lot of strength and competence around emotions that are helping her through this time. It just kind of looks that way to me. But I would worry about her if she has a tendency for anxiety and depression through this time. And if the eating disorder can be triggered by a comparison with the younger Raquel, that would be a worry for Ariana. But I don't know. She seems like she's dealing with it pretty healthy at this point. Tom always wanted marriage and kids with Ariana, but Ariana has been clear that she does not want marriage and kids. Oh, interesting. So Tom wanted to get married, have kids, and Ariana rejected that. Though in recent years, she has been more open to it and even froze her eggs for Tom. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, Tom didn't really mention that as a factor. He talked about how they drifted apart. Maybe that was part of it. And that could be. I mean, having kids is a big thing for people, right? And maybe that's what Tom was talking about when he was talking about being washed up. Certainly, if he was referring to having a family and kids, he should say that and not washed up. But maybe that's what he was referring to, which, makes some sense. If he broke up with Ariana and said, I just have to be with someone that wants kids, it's too big of a deal to me, I'm so sorry, I would understand that. But to cheat. In 2023, Ariana discovered that Tom had been having an 8-month-long affair with her best friend, Raquel. The affair went on while they were filming season 10. All right. The Toms, you have Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz. The Toms are best friends, both have a history of cheating on their girlfriends and have covered for one another's lies in early seasons of the show. Both have a history of cheating on their girlfriends, like are just the ones that I've read about, or are we talking multiple? But their reputations seem to recover as years went on. And so that's interesting, as if you're a longtime viewer, I can imagine that adding to the anger you would have at Tom, that Tom would cheat, you get upset, and then he recovers and you start to trust him again and like him again. And then he does it again. That can really add to the pain and the frustration, because you're not only angry at Tom, but you're angry at yourself for letting your guard down. In 2016, Lisa Vanderpump offered the Toms a 5% interest in a new bar she wanted to open in their honor called Tom Tom. It's a big success. Okay, so that was that place they were talking about. Over the last few years, the Toms began working on opening a new restaurant together without Lisa called Schwartz and Sandy's. It opened in 2023. All right, Lisa Vanderpump is a successful restaurateur, businesswoman, TV personality, animal activist, and founder of the Vanderpump Dog Rescue in LA. She has been married to her husband, Ken, since '82. She was on the Housewives of Beverly Hills reality TV show. I watched a little bit of that on this channel a bit ago. Then did a spinoff called Vanderpump Rules, following the lives of the servers and bartenders at a restaurant, Sur. Due to the success of their show, most of the cast no longer works for her and have started their own businesses. She has been a motherly figure to the entire cast. Okay, well, everyone thank T-Sky below for sending me those details. Okay, well, let's stop there and tune in next time when I continue watching. And everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.